So we're back here, and this happens to be the parsha where we're talking about Jacob. He's almost about to meet his angel here, with the wrestle with the angel. Interesting parsha here. So Jacob here is going home, and he hears rumor that his brother, who's kind of unhappy with him, Esau, is heading his way with about 400 soldiers.
Right.
So obviously he's freaking out a little bit. He has to do something here. He's got to get out of the way. And so he decides, here's what I'm going to do. We're going to go hide. We're going to escape. But wait a minute. I forgot some jugs. These jugs, I left them back at the last campsite we're at. I forgot some jugs. So let's split our forces. You go ahead over here, and I'll head back for the jugs. Now, I'm reading about this here, and I'm thinking, okay, something's wrong here. Normally, I will wait till Monday morning to hear your brilliant but kind of long-winded dissertation of what that's really about. But I said, this is kind of interesting. I'm going to read ahead myself. And I guess Jacob's thinking to himself, okay, these jugs, they were given to me by God, and I can't, anything that's given to me by God, I can't leave, so I got to go back and get them. Now, obviously, Jacob has never watched a horror movie. And in a horror movie, there's a couple rules. Number one
thing, I think you've never said a truer thing in your life.
You think so?
I think that Jacob had never, ever watched a horror movie. I would be willing to
You think you bet on that one?
I'll go all out on that. I'm putting everything on that one, putting the mortgage on that one. Jacob never watched a horror movie.
But he should have still known the basic concept of a horror movie. Here's what happens to every horror movie. Oh, we're almost out of there. We've almost broken free. Now we see, wait a minute, I forgot my brilliant manuscript or something like that. I got to go back and get it. So first the audience is going, no, don't do it. Then in every horror movie they say the great thing, but let's split up. So we you don't. As soon as you split up, the knife is coming in, and
everyone's left alone.
And someone's dead. So he makes both mistakes here.
Yeah, right.
He splits up, and he's going back for the jugs.
By the way, where do you think those horror writers got it?
They think, wow, they get all their material.
This was your first. Yeah.
This is the obvious
Correct.
one. So, big mistakes right there, which I just don't understand. So I do read ahead, and I get to think, okay, well, Jacob is, because he's such a tzaddik, and these are jugs were given by God, and now this gives me another dilemma here with Jacob. Number one, the neuroses that have to develop in a guy, the OCD, the things that can develop when you worry about every single thing that you own is given to you by God. I mean, these jugs, probably Rachel or Leah went out to some outlet bazaar, picked up these jugs here, but now they're in his possession, so I gotta save these things.
They put dust on them to make them look like they're centuries old.
Right. So he thinks this is important. I mean, think of the issues that does. This guy's already got a lot of issues. He's got an uncle that's cheated him for over 20 years. He's got a brother that wants to kill him. He's got 4 wives that are begging for his attention and can't get enough time in his attention. This guy's got more pressure on him than anybody else you've ever seen.
He's missing his jugs.
He's missing his jugs. And I'm saying, so this poor guy must, and every morning after he finishes his bowl of Count Chocula or Captain Crunch, has to decide whether to throw out the box, because this box was given him by God. Not much, not much. This is tough.
Right.
I don't have, and we're supposed to learn something from this. Obviously, every story in the Torah we're supposed to learn from.
I bet you Jacob bought his breakfast cereal from a bin. He probably took his own bag, his reusable bag that he had from the grocery store, and he filled it and just scooped the cereal right in there.
That makes sense, because this is tough. I mean, I'm supposed to learn from this. I have issues too. Now I'm worrying, wait a minute, I'm thinking about everything else. He could be on an episode of Hoarders. His tent is probably filled up with so much junk now, he can't fit his 4 wives in his tent. Right. So what do we do? What do we learn from this one?
Well, I actually thought, before you even get started with that, I thought that your remark, or your first reaction to this yesterday, when I said, let's talk about Jacob going back for the jugs, and you said, what jugs? And then I realized, wait a second. The jugs don't appear in the text.
Oh, I didn't know. I thought maybe I just glanced over it because it was such a minor story.
Right. So when I went back to reread, to me it's so simple, because the way I read the story is the way the Midrash fills in, paints in the background, the backdrop of the picture. But when you look at this story carefully, all it says is Jacob is there with his family. So he split them up into camps.
Right.
And he sent Leah and some of her kids in one camp, and Rachel and some of her kids with another camp. And he said, the reason I'll split them into camps is if Esav attacks one, that'll at least the other one will escape.
Right.
Okay, so it's a good tactic. Fine. The next thing we read is Jacob was left alone. It says Jacob took them across the river, and then Jacob was left alone. And then the angel came, and he had a big wrestling match with the angel, and he fought him all night.
Right.
So what happened? Jacob took him across the river. I guess, he took him across the river, he sent one group this way and the other group that way. And then Jacob was left alone. Well,
right.
How did he get left alone? Must be he went back across the river. And he's back on the other side of the river, he's left alone, and that's where the angel gets him. Well, why did he go back across the river? If he took the family across the river, why is he going back across the river? As a matter of fact, you would think that he would want to stay on the same side of the river as his kids and stay with one of the two groups so they can help defend them and, let the other one have a good chance to get away. Why is Jacob going back across the river? So that's where the Medrash steps in.
Okay.
And the Medrash adds in this comment and says, Jacob had left behind small jugs, and he went back across the river to get the little jugs, and while he was back across the river, the angel came along and he started wrestling with him, and then they had the wrestling match, which lasted all night until the angel blessed him in the morning.
Right.
So that's where it all comes from. So when you read the story and you didn't see it,
I never saw it.
you're cool.
Okay, good. I got worried there.
You're good.
All right, good.
You're good. Don't have
I thought I had an old version.
crisis of faith
No,
or anything like that, Or, Rabbi Friedman's now reading the new version.
Right.
And,
I got nervous.
Don't worry about that.
Good.
The Midrash has it in. So just a word about the Midrash, since we're saying this. The Midrash is the oral teachings of the stories that are behind the stories. Many times you can verify these Midrashim from scrutinizing the text. Sometimes you actually can't. In this case, it's sort of in between, because you could make on the one hand, you could explain certainly he must have gone back across the river, but exactly why was he back across the river to get the little jugs is unclear. But anyway, that's what the Midrash says.
Okay.
Be that as it may. So let's say that's what the Midrash says. That's our Jewish tradition. Our Jewish tradition is the reason Jacob got caught by himself by the angel, and he had this fight all night with the angel, is because he had gone back to pick up little jugs. Why? Why would the Medrash be telling that? I mean, and one way or another, if that's what happened, why did Jacob do it? Put himself at risk, just go get the little jugs.
That's where you got me.
And if that's not what happened, why did the Medrash tell us that's what happened?
Right.
I mean, what are they trying to get out of that? Okay, that's where you have to understand. I actually think that the real understanding of the story goes back to last week.
Okay.
The beginning of last week's Parsha. Jacob runs away. This is all we're talking about, Genesis, probably chapter 29-ish or something like that. Jacob runs away from Esau. And he gets to a certain place, and he stops and he sleeps there.
Right.
And while he sleeps there, he has a dream. And in the dream he sees there's a ladder.
No, right.
And on the ladder are angels going down, going up and coming down. And God says that this land that you're sleeping on and is holy and so on and so forth. Now, what's this all about with this? Why is he having this dream? Why is he seeing angels going up and down on the ladder and all that? What does that mean?
I've heard tons of different guesses of what that means.
I bet you, right.
Yeah.
So, Jacob says when he wakes up, this is an awesome place. This is the house of God, and this is the stairway to heaven.
Ooh,
Actually, he doesn't say stairway to heaven.
I like that, though.
It would have been cool if he did, but he didn't. He didn't say stairway to heaven exactly. He says this is the gate of heaven.
Pretty good. That's
right.
Song anyway.
Right. Either way, so he realizes he came to the house of God, even though there's no building there or anything. It's just a spot. But he sees that this is the place where heaven and earth connect, and there is this ladder. That's how heaven and earth connect. There's a ladder. So now, the exact description of the ladder is, and behold, it's a ladder planted in the ground, and its head reaches toward the heaven.
Right.
And behold, there are angels going up and coming down the ladder. So I said, what does that mean? It's planted in the ground, and its head reaches up towards heaven. You know what? Every ladder is planted in the ground, and its head reaches towards heaven.
Right.
Every ladder I've seen in the ground, just say it's a ladder. We know what ladders look like, right? Just say this is a ladder.
Good point.
Now, okay, so maybe it's a big, tall ladder. Okay, fine, it's a big, tall ladder, right? It means it goes up, and there's no maybe like nothing that's leaning on top or whatever. So Jacob sees something. He sees an image, and he realizes this is how to get to heaven. This is the gate to heaven.
Right.
That means in heaven, you go up on that ladder. Okay, how do you go up on that ladder? So it says the angels are going up and coming down. So you see, the way to get to heaven is go up on the ladder. Well, the ladder is planted in the ground. So Jacob then realizes a lesson. This is what the Rabbi Berezovsky tells us, that Jacob says, this is how you get to heaven. You know how you get to heaven? You got to be planted in the ground. What you do here on this earth is you take what you got on this earth and you climb up to heaven with it.
I've never heard this definition before.
That's how you get up to heaven.
Okay.
The only way to get up to heaven, you got to be planted in the earth. You got to be here on the ground, dealing with it, utilizing it,
Right.
manipulating it, working it.
Right.
You work the world that's given you, and that's what gets you up to heaven. Now, a little bit more background just to help us appreciate what's going on here. Jacob was not a very worldly guy. Jacob was probably, more like a pocket protector.
Yeah, he was a little nerdy. Stayed in his tent.
Top button, no tie.
Right.
Stayed in a tent, bookish.
Play some video games.
Bookish guy, like all that type of stuff. Yeah. He had a brother Esau. Esau's out in the world. Esau's a hunter. Esau's involved with wives, not necessarily his. Esau's a little murderer. Esau wears flashy clothes. Esau's, he's a man of the world.
Hairy man, but a man of the world.
Hairy man of the world. And the women like the hairy guys,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So they like Esau. Jacob is a tent guy. He's a bookish guy. He's like a studious guy. Jacob does not know how to deal really with the world. When he runs away from Esau, he spends 14 years studying in the yeshiva of Shem and Aver. Aver would be Shem, who came off of the ark, his grandson. More bookish, more cloistered, more away. Now what's he doing? He's on his way to hang out with Lavan. Laban is a conniving guy. Laban's a tricky guy. Laban's got every move in the book. If Jacob is going to deal with him, he's going to come out older and wiser, because this is like dealing in the real world.
He learns pretty well.
You got to have street smarts, which Jacob does not have. And Jacob was probably feeling pretty depressed. Why do I have to go out there, deal with him, get involved with this world? I want to be involved in godly things and spiritual pursuits. I don't want to be tangling with this Laban type fellow.
Right.
Instead, what does he say? What does God show him? God shows him, this is how to do it. You know how to do it? Get out there and deal with the world. You want to get to heaven? Got to deal with this world. Okay, that's his lesson. As a matter of fact, when Jacob got there, it says like it got dark real quickly, suddenly. So he had to lay down, he had to go to sleep. That's when he had the dream. Why'd that happen? It was kind of like got him there. He said, before you go out into the world out there, I want to show you this. Now where does he introduce him to? He says to Jacob, the way that you get to heaven is by utilizing this world. And then Jacob, when he wakes up, he says, wow, this is wonderful. If you take care of me and you give me what I need and I come back home safely, I'm going to tithe you, I'm going to build it right to you, and I'm going to make a monument to you, and I'm going to bring offerings to you, and I'm going to give tithe to you. Jacob says, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get into this world, and I'm going to dedicate a portion of everything that I get in this world to you. So Jacob goes out in the world, and he does great. He learns how to deal with Laban. He picks up 4 wives, and he's got himself a dozen kids, and he's got sheep and flocks, and Laban tries to trick him out of it, and he tricks him, and Laban tries to trick him out again, and he tricks him again, and he is so conniving.
He learns.
He is a master of this world. Where does he learn on the way? This is what you were mentioning before. Now he comes back. He comes back, and now he's got this one more maneuver to do. So he's got to figure out, like, now I got Esau to deal with. I just dealt with Laban, did okay with him, dealt with Esau the first time by running away. But now we're going to have a confrontation. But now I'm like older and wiser. So he says, now I know. I'm going to do some tactics, one camp here, one camp there. I'm going to do some prayer. I'm also going to try to bribe him. So he starts sending gifts to Esau. Yep. Says, tell Esau that this is the gifts from your brother Jacob. Bribery. Tries everything because he's a worldly guy. But one thing if he realized, I forgot the jugs. I left those jugs behind. Why is he going back for the jugs?
I mean, jugs are kind of worthless. Right? There's no value, no monetary value to these jugs, right?
You would think. But Jacob is the type of guy that realizes that everything that comes into his world is given to him for a reason. So he's got to play. This is like Jacob's, let's say he's playing Monopoly.
Right.
Right? And to him, life is the game of Monopoly. Okay? So when you if you land on a certain space, there's a reason why you land on a space. If you pull out the card that says community chest, there's a reason why you get community chest. Everything is significant.
Right.
He's given little jugs. He says, I am supposed to utilize them. You don't just forget your jugs. You crossed the river, you forgot the jug, he left the jug behind. Well, what's that all about? You don't just forget the jugs. If God gave you something, it's significant. You can't just write off part of your life, ignore it.
Even jugs.
Even jugs.
Right.
So Jacob says, there's something significant. Why would I have forgotten the jugs? Got to go back. Can't just write them off. Jacob does not write off anything. Talk about recycling. Jacob does not throw away anything. Until it's gone, he's using it. If God gave it to him, it has significance. He makes the most of everything he has. So he says, how can I just walk away and left a bunch of jugs? Must be, I got to go back and get the jugs. Of course, it is very significant, and the truth is he's right. Because when he goes back to get the jugs, he has to fight with the angel, and actually, while struggling with the angel, he defeats Esau, because that angel is Esau's angel.
Esau's angel, okay.
So it turned out to be very significant for him. So he made a good call.
So the reason that God wanted him to get the jugs is to go back over the river so he could fight with Esau's angel.
That's right. Now, Jacob knew. So what did Jacob know? Jacob said, oh, I forgot the jugs. Well, so what? Most of us would say, see, you forgot the jugs. We'll buy more jugs when we get there. Right? Okay, lost it, write it off. We're not going back now. We're going to be late.
Right.
I get it. I can't go back for a bunch of jugs. But Jacob says that's not the way life works. Life works is that every single thing. I didn't just get those jugs. God gave me the jugs. Right? So if it was like, oh, we left behind that bowl. Left behind the bowl. Okay, forget it. We'll get another bowl. What if I left behind the cereal bowl that my father gave me that he used to eat out of when he was a kid, and I ate out of when I'm a kid, and my mother put my little hot cereal in there, and I left that behind. You going to go back for that one?
You might go back for it.
Yeah, probably going back. Why? Because it's significant. So what really is the deal is, in our society, and again, I don't believe that, we're going to destroy the planet if we throw away our plastic bowls.
Right.
However, I do believe that we have become so careless because we live in such a disposable world, which is because we live in a consumer society where the whole idea is to consume and consume and consume, that we have lost the significance of what we have. We don't appreciate the things that we have. If I have it, God gave it to me. If God gave it to me, that means I'm supposed to utilize it. And I can't just throw it away or disregard it. We treat everything like trash. So we're really demeaning our world because we're not appreciating that God gave it to me and that everything that he gave me is significant.
Well, what if he already, let's say, and I guess you're supposed to do everything for good, so God gives you a bowl, well, you already, or a goblet, or a what, and you used it to make kiddush with it, you did something good with it, you did something, is it then, can you sell it? Can you get rid of it? I mean, this is what makes, I get nervous when I hear things like this.
I'm not saying you have to save everything.
Well, that's what makes me nervous when I'm going to be thinking every time I look at this little rock, and that rock could be something important.
Sell it, But Jacob, in this situation, he had something and he forgot them. Now, forgetting them is what bothered Jacob.
Okay, so it wasn't the fact that it was the jugs, it was the fact that why did I forget these jugs?
I forgot these jugs over there. That's what bothered him, meaning I was careless. I did not appreciate the material that God put in my life. I just disregarded it because I walked away and forgot it. That's the problem. The problem is he didn't appreciate the significance of a gift that God had given him. If God gives you a gift, you hang on to it, right? This is like people will keep their little mementos and stuff like that. They have, if someone, whatever it is, when they went out and if you were dating the girl that you later married and you gave her a gift along the way, the fact that she keeps it in her little drawer there, it's a nice thing.
But if you got a gift from the girl that you first dated and now you're married to somebody else and your wife throws it out,
you better get rid of that.
That's okay.
You better have gotten rid of that before your wife got there to throw it out.
So that's okay then. I want to make sure.
My mother, in her scrapbook, she had napkins from the restaurants that they went to when they were dating.
So she understood Jacob.
Yeah, like the program from the show that they went to and that type of, but the fact that God gave you something.
Right.
That's the point. The fact that God gave you something, and that is something that you shouldn't be casual with. I don't think that Jacob went back because he was so cheap that he couldn't lose on the jugs. He was shocked by the fact that he had just casually left stuff behind and it didn't even matter to him. That shook him up.
Wow.
So he said, I got to go back and get those jugs. I can't just let things come in and out of my life without them being significant.
I mean, again, it's tough. So I'm trying to think what's the lesson here in this, because there's a lot of different ways you can look at it, and some of them are kind of disturbing to me. I got tough time with this.
I'm not talking about being a hoarder.
Well, but I worry about. Listen, I'm in all seriousness. I'm thinking, well, I'll look at this thing. Is there a reason why I have this cup, this book? Should I not throw it out? Should I keep it? Should I be doing something? You can lose your mind thinking about all this stuff.
Well, do you need a new one? Do you need a new one? Do you need to buy a new one? Is this one still working? Is this one still functional?
Well, whatever, it doesn't do anything. It's just something I bought when I was, I got it, or somebody gave it to me, but it's worthless.
So that's a good question. Why did you just buy something?
That's a good point.
Why do we just buy things? So that we can have them? I mean, let's go through our houses and look, how many things do we just have for the sake of having?
Most everything.
I was talking to a guy. He said he went to visit his mother. She lives in New York. He went to visit his mother. They drive up to the house, and his mother's hauling stuff out to the curb. So he says, what are you doing? So she says, I'm cleaning out, I got a lot of junk in the house, I'm cleaning it out. He says, we'll take care of that. She says, no, I'm going to take my life out I'm going to take my own life out to the curb. I'm not going to have you take my life out to the curb. It's my life. If I want to take it out to the curb, I take it out to the curb.
I'll do it.
Right? But how much of our houses are full of junk that we bought because we don't even know why we bought it, just because it was there,
Probably
and
a
we're
lot.
supposed to do it, and everyone's doing it, and while you're there, you're supposed to buy one, because how many stores do we have, and how many sweatshirts do we have, and how many knickknacks do we have, because we're just supposed to buy them. Now, maybe if it reminds you, you have collections, they remind you of things, I can see it's some value, but I mean, how much stuff do we buy? I know someone that has an entire closet full of stuff that they bought on sale. Still sitting in the boxes.
Well, it was on sale.
It was on sale.
I
It's
understand
still
that.
sitting years in his closets full of stuff like how many blenders do you need? So that is our problem, that we're kind of stuck in this consumer society. And the problem is really then everything that we have becomes very meaningless. We don't really treasure the things that we have.
But was that blender meaningless?
If it's still sitting in the box a year later, it probably was meaningless.
Yeah, so
because we don't even appreciate value of things.
So the bottom line is we should have, we the stuff we have we should appreciate everything. There should be a value to everything. And if God gave it to us, and God probably didn't give us 4 blenders and told us, because they were on sale.
Right.
If God gave us something, it probably has significance. But we have to figure out what that is, though.
And use it, use it when you need it. If you don't need it, why are you buying it? And if it's still working, why are you throwing it out? And I'm not saying like you have to like the cheapest man in the world, the stingiest guy in the world, so he buys the 4-ply toilet paper and he splits them, right? So he won the award, cheapest, stingiest guy in the world. I'm not saying be the stingiest guy in the world or anything like that. But because of our consumer society, we have lost the significance
of the value
of the things that God puts into our world. And we don't realize that we're surrounded by things of value that were given to us, and we're not taking the value out of them and utilizing them as we've been given. And the truth is, it cheapens life.
So this has nothing to do with, like, say, if you have a cup, or, with the Kabbalistic thing of raising the sparks of it, when you can do something good with that cup, or you can do something good with that jug, or you can do something good with that blender. Is that what? No, we're not talking about.
Well, actually, that's a good question, because the question is, had he already used those jugs or not? Yes, that's a Kabbalistic way of talking about it. Bringing out the sparks by doing it, using it for holy things. And the truth is, many times this Torah reading is already in Hanukkah mode, and we'll talk maybe more about that, because they had that jug. There's significance here, the jugs, and going back to the jug of oil and all that.
Right.
But I'm just trying to lay the foundation of realizing that the way you get to heaven is by utilizing the tools that are presented to you in this world. So if I have something, then that tells me what God is saying is that you can get to heaven with this.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. That's pretty. And I've never heard that interpretation. That's pretty intense right there.
So God hands you something. This is your tool to get to heaven. Wow. So you're not just like, oh, okay, well, I'll just discard that and get another one. Yeah, too important.
So life is a little deeper than just getting that new Xbox out there, or the new PlayStation. Right. I mean, sometimes the things that you have might have a little bit more significance. And probably God didn't give you the PlayStation. I mean, he might have.
I don't know.
He might have.
He may have.
Maybe there's something you're supposed to be doing.
He may have. I don't know. Everyone's got their own life. Everyone's got their own challenges. Everyone's got their own issues. And most importantly, everyone has their own opportunities.
Wow. All right. This one makes sense. Better interpretation than I got with my quick reading this morning.
Right.
Right, good. I like it.
There you go.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Well, we will be back with another brilliant, I assume, if not long-winded, presentation by Rabbi Friedman next week.
Okay.
All right. And